Hello. So hopefully everything's working and we are live now. I am Lydia Sherrer, USA Today bestselling author of the Love, Lies, and Hocus Pocus universe of books. And with me is the lovely Amy McFadden, who is a professional narrator who's narrated, what, hundreds, right? Probably
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of books, maybe thousands of books.
Somewhere
Um,
around 700-ish. Yeah, somewhere in there. Mhm.
okay. And Amy is the narrator that we handpicked for the Love, Lies, and Hocus Pocus books. And I was absolutely flabbergasted that she had room for us. So it was very exciting. And then once she started, of course, she had to finish. We'll have to finish. There's more coming, as you know, Amy.
Yes.
And so I just wanted Amy to be able to chat with us today to answer some of the audience questions, answer some questions about just, what she likes about the series and get to know her a little bit. Because I'd love for my fans and readers to get to know Amy and just learn more about narrating in general. So, Amy, real quick, just to get us started, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I'm specifically interested in what got you into narrating.
Mhm.
If it was more like an accident you stumbled on it, or if it's always what you wanted to do, and also, maybe what makes you most passionate about narrating, what like gets you up and going every day.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So my background is in acting. So I have a degree in acting, and I taught second grade actually for 21 years.
Oh,
So
wow.
I read aloud a lot. And
Wow.
second graders can be a tough audience, so I had to work hard. So I taught in public school for 21 years, and I acted part-time, summers, evenings, and that sort of thing. And then at some point, my school did a buyout, and I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And then I took a leap, and I became a full-time actress. And I was actually doing a movie called Mickey Matson and the Copperhead Conspiracy. And there were some other narrators who were doing some film stuff, and they're like, you might really like this. So I did a bunch of research, worked really hard, made a demo, and I sent it into Brilliance Audio, which is in Grand Haven, Michigan. I'm from Grand Rapids, so they're about 45 minutes away from me. And this was at a time back in 2012 where you literally mailed in a CD, like you literally mailed it in a little package to them. And I made this funny fake resume or whatever and sent it in. So anyway, yeah. And they called me in and I auditioned, and that's how I got my start.
Wow, that is so cool. So I'm curious for the acting. Do you still do any acting? Would you say acting was something more that you were interested in, but you just realized you like narrating more? Like, why the switch? And do you still do some acting?
Yeah. So first of all, narrating is definitely acting. Like
Oh yes, yeah.
everything.
I mean like stage acting.
No. Yeah, yeah. So, but I try to get on stage as much as I can because being a narrator, I work alone in my basement in a 4 by 4 foot box. So it's isolating. So yeah, I try to do a stage show at least once a year. And then really before the pandemic, I did a lot more on camera stuff. And I haven't really gotten back into that too much after 2020. But yeah, I try to do every different kind of acting that I can do because all of that makes you better at all the different disciplines.
Of
So
course it does, yeah. Just like, even though I write novels, I'll occasionally write short stories to submit to I'll do
yeah.
different forms of writing. Um, so hi Stephanie, hi Mike, and hi Danielle, who's already here. They've just been commenting in the comments here. Mike says fewer cats present than expected.
Oh, wait.
Gadget is over there lurking on the treadmill, ignoring me with her back turned to me. Oh, we have cats. Amy has cats.
Yeah,
They're not
mom.
they're not purring cats. And so you see the giant cat behind her. It is literally what, 5 feet tall, 6 feet
Yeah,
tall.
it's really big.
It's really big. It's probably paper mache or something,
Yeah,
but
it's paper
it has
mache.
a
His
giant
little
cat.
gold toenails.
Oh, that's very cute. Yep. Oh, and of course we do have the Sir Kipling plushie, which
Oh,
has a pin on it that I think is I get away with it because I'm married, so
first mate.
then
Oh,
cuddle.
oh.
First mate, then cuddle. Yep. Yep, that's what it says. I found it at a Ren fair because David and I met like through not so much through Ren fairs, but one reason we hit it off so well is because we were both Rennies.
Yeah.
And so we had worked at Ren fairs for years, and we go to multiple Ren fairs every year. And so this was the Ohio Ren Fair up in Southern Ohio, and just a big shop with a bunch of like huge bins full of these little pins. And my friend found this one and thought it was hilarious. And I'm like, yes, yes. First mate, then cuddle. Yes. But it's so cute because you don't expect it. You don't expect it. Like you're like first mate, yeah, and then what?
Oh, yeah, you read it, and I couldn't even get it from context. Like I didn't know what to expect. Right?
Yeah, that's pretty funny. But anywho, so yes, there's hey Gadget, you want to come say hi? Come here. She's like, nope, she's cleaning her tail. She's totally ignoring. She's licking her butt right now.
Oh, great.
Just ignoring me. Yep.
Well, I see my sister in the comments. She said, "I know that cat because it's actually my mom. She's on loan for this interview."
Oh, that's cool. Okay. All right. So really quick, I just wanted to mention because I forgot to mention at the very beginning that someone had mentioned just in the comments they couldn't wait for the latest audiobook to drop, and I want to let people know that the audiobook for Love, Lies, and Hocus Pocus Odyssey, Book 8 of the Lee Singer Adventures, is available on my website. I'm putting a link in the chat stream, but you can also just go to store.lydiasherrer.com or just Google Lydia Sherrer or whatever to find my website, and it's right there on the front page of my website. It's heavily discounted at 60% off right now. It's basically the same price as if you were on Audible and paying with an Audible credit. But I wanted to discount it to that price to kind of help people out and make it an easy choice between me and Audible. Since I make 100% versus 25%. So if you're an Audible, a staunch Audible listener, that's totally fine. I get it, because unlike with ebooks that you can upload to your Kindle, if you get it from another source, you can't put audiobooks from other independent sources onto your Audible app, unfortunately. So I get that some people want all their audiobooks in the same place. That's cool. But if you want to buy it direct from me, you can go to my website or just go on that link above. It's $14.99 for a limited time. And it's like almost 20 hours of listening. And usually like that's a $35, $37 like cost audiobook. I definitely paid Amy well for it. So
you sure did. Yes, you did.
So hopefully if you do want to get it from me, you listen to it on the BookFunnel app. It works just like the Audible app. It's super easy to listen to. You just download the app, and all your audiobooks that you get from me or any other independent author is all going to be in the same place. And it's the same app that you would have your ebooks on from me. So you've got all your stuff from me on the same app. So that makes it really useful. So Linda Wakefield says, you coming to Las Vegas again in the future? Maybe, Linda. There's a big book conference there every November, which is what we went to last year, and we may go this year. We're not sure. If anyone hadn't heard, I'm pregnant and due in July. So we're going to have a baby, and I'm not sure yet if we're going to be able to travel with baby or not, because he'll be too young at that point to leave behind. So we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to get to some questions for our wonderful Amy, and readers feel free to throw, or listeners feel free to throw questions in the comments, and I'll try and go through and just like pick out from there kind of in between what we're doing. So Amy, I'm curious, what was your first impression of like me and my books when someone was like, hey, Amy, will you narrate this? And you're like, who's this weird lady? Let's check her and her books out. What was your first impression?
Well, I remember sitting out on my deck on the phone with you. Somehow you called me. Do you remember this?
So I think I asked Tantor if I could get in touch with you because I wanted to chat with you about it. Like about, whether or not you wanted to do the books and like just your view, like your vision for it and that kind of thing. Because it was really important to me that whoever did the books was enjoyed the story. Like it wasn't just a job, but they were like enjoying the characters and they wanted to do it. Not just wanted because they were getting paid, which is a totally fine reason to do any job, is to get paid because everybody has to make a living. But I really wanted my narrator to feel very passionate about the book. So anyway, continue, Amy.
Yeah, so we were talking about some other books that your wonderful husband had heard me do. And he said, I thought he recommended me. And I remember him telling me that. And just I remember talking about the tone of it and kind of how you felt about Lily and who she was. I just remember being excited. I also really love world building. Like even as a reader, I love reading fantasy and all that. Anyway, so it was very fun because you are wonderful at it. And also it was a really good fit for me because you go to eventually, you know, some very dark places and some very hard places emotionally and just as human beings. But there's also, I'm just going to call it like a foundation of love underneath everything.
This is what happens when she gets
Even
on
a
my
cat
chest.
tail can't wipe
She
away.
just
There's a
she just sits in front of me and smacks me in the face with her tail, which because she's a long hair Maine Coon, her hair is very fine, like very
oh,
fine, and so it
yeah,
just gets all
gets right in your
over.
nose.
But anyway, I didn't want to
There's
interrupt you.
a
Keep going.
foundation of love and I would even say joy underneath, even though there's suffering and there's this and there's that. There's just a foundation there. And so, you know, as a performer, I have to go where everybody goes. All of your characters, the depths and the highs, I have to do that, right? Because I'm everybody in the book. And so anyway, so I just felt like it was safe, it's safe to do that because we're gonna come back to okay at some point, right?
I'm not George R. R. Martin.
Right. And
I
it
feel
also isn't gonna go like dip into erotica where something
yes.
gets, you know,
Yeah.
none of that is happening.
I kind of feel sad, kind of feel
No.
a little bad for whoever narrates the Game of Thrones books. Like I bet they have to be very emotionally detached because getting attached to those characters and then narrating their death.
I mean, right, everyone
Yeah.
dies. Yeah, I
Which
don't know. I don't think you can do it without getting emotionally attached. I mean,
to be
maybe.
fair, Amy, you are going to have to narrate a couple deaths.
I know. I know. I know. Every time I get a new book from you, I'm like, "Ah!"
I'm not saying who yet.
I know you're not.
No spoilers.
I don't know. She never tells
I
me.
promise,
I don't know.
but I promise that it will be bittersweet. It won't be wasted. It'll be bittersweet. So anyway,
Okay. It's gonna be like when
um,
I walked out of the Lord of the Rings and I'm like, he died. But did he really?
yeah,
And I read the books. I know
yeah,
what happened. And I still was sobbing when I walked out.
yeah.
You're gonna do that to me, Lydia. I know you are. I'm gonna text you.
It
Send chocolate.
won't just be you.
Send
It'll be all of my readers. So it's not like I'm picking on you or anything.
but I
Um,
can't commiserate because I have to read it before everybody else does.
That's true. All right, I'm going to go back and ask a couple questions that the audience asked, and
Okay.
if I forget one, people like if you posted a question and it's like long past, feel free, listeners, to just pop it in the comments again if I haven't answered it, because there may be so many comments that I just can't find it. But anyway, someone asked how many more books will be in the Lily Singer series. There are 12 books in the Lily Singer Adventures. There always have been. There always will be. I've answered this question so many times and it kind of makes me laugh because I feel like I must have said it enough to tell the entire world, but I understand that like not everybody is in the same place as I am. And when I say this, there are 12 books. And so I just published book 8. I'm working on book 9. There is 12 books. Don't ask my husband for his opinion. There are 12 books. Someone else asks, I'm curious how much inside the scoop Amy gets. Here, I'll show the comment. There at the bottom, how much inside scoop Amy gets really about future story arcs and character development as it weighs on the performance choices in the present. Actually, none, because the characters are in the present.
Right.
The characters are right there. It's happening to them right now. So there's nothing that Amy needs to know in terms of future things that have to do with the narration. Now, what Amy does know is some of the character backstories that isn't like explicitly in the books, just in terms of like some of their favorite things and their habits and like what they like to wear and just kind of like an overall, like if a new character is introduced, I'll just give an overall a view of the characters so she can kind of get a feel for them. But that's like in the past.
Yeah.
Maybe not stuff that's explicitly mentioned in the books, but nothing in the future.
And I
And then
actually wouldn't want to know because then I have to put that out of my head to stay in the present, right? Like I'm glad I don't know.
yeah. Here's another one. Amy, what is your favorite character to voice?
So it's
Hard,
so
I know.
hard because there's so like Thriel is so fun because she's just so regal, right? Thriel.
Yes, Theriel. You said that right. And with Theriel, it's like she knows a lot more than she lets on. And you
Mm,
never know what she's thinking. She does not
right,
give shit away.
right, right. I know, I love her, but just that self-possessed, regal, and then also, I think you do a really good job of this, Lydia. It's difficult because you're finding all of these different voices, and of course, as this goes on, there's I don't know how many characters total, hundreds and hundreds of characters. And first of all, you're not making a judgment about who's the bad guy or who's the good guy or whatever, but you have to be careful about what accents you give which people to keep everybody separate and safe. So anyway, Theriel is really fun. I love her. Morgan Le Fay was fun just because she was so like literally insane. Like, poor thing. It was pitiful in a way, except that she's evil. But I think probably
she is a very pitiable character in a way. I mean, she made her choices, and she is consumed by arrogance and lust for power. But also, she didn't have it easy. And yeah, she is clinically insane right now for reasons it's her fault. Like, she made those choices that made her clinically, but she is insane right now.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And at some point, predator becomes prey. Anyway, so I feel sorry for her. But anyway, I really like voicing Yuki. I just think you remember who Yuki is, right, guys?
Yes. So the Fae Fox. Yeah. Do you like saying his full name?
I do, actually, especially when I say it
correctly. I don't even know if I can say it without looking at it. It's Yuki Abukiarak, I think. So I literally made up the most complex, weird mishmash of sounds and consonants that I could possibly think of.
And apostrophes for glottal stops.
Glottal stops. That's the word for them. So I purposely made his name as absolutely ridiculous as possible. Like, it was not even based on anything realistic. I just made it up because I'm like, Yuki. Like, he's like, don't try my real name. Like, you just Yuki. Yuki's fine. Yeah. So let's see. Here's some other questions.
Yeah, and Sir Kip too, of course. Sorry to go back to that.
Of course, yeah.
Because he's just written, just that snark and sarcasm. It's so fun to play it as dry as I can, which is why I don't know if you've shared the blooper reel from Cat Magic.
From Cat Magic, I have. I don't know how many people have seen it because, again, it's really tough on social media because they choke. Well, and they choke all your organic posts, and even if you pay for them, they actually don't really show that many. So, like, some people have seen it, but I can share it again after this and just remind people of it. But I love those bloopers. My favorite, just when you dissolve into snorts, like you just can't take it anymore, and you just snort. So
thank you, Stephanie. That was a good question. That was a fun question.
So let's see here. So here is a question from Sarah Hartman. When you narrate, is that your first time reading the book?
No. No. So if it's a book that's like modern day, there's not a lot of research to do, maybe a romance that's just very simple and fun, or something that I've done a lot of, like in the same small town romance or whatever, I'll read it once and make all my notes in it. And then when I get in the booth, that's the second time I'm reading it. But I definitely read cover to cover before I get in the booth.
Yeah. And here's a follow-up. Well, because of all the weird pronunciations.
So all the pronunciations. Also, I always read the synopsis of the series before I even start prepping the new book because it's a lot to hold in your head. There's over 102 hours of audio we've done so far. And that's a lot. So I always read that. And then I highlight anything I don't know how to say, or even if I think I know how to say it.
Obeisance versus obeisance.
And then I make a spreadsheet of all those words, and then those go to the proofer. So so I'm doing a lot of work with the text before I ever get in the booth.
Yeah. And this is just a follow-up question. Alana is kind of asking the same question, but she added to it, how long does it take you to do one book? So in other words, you've got per finished hour. So finished hour for book 8 is about 18 and a half hours or so. So how many approximately hours went into making those 18 and a half hours?
So you have to read the book first. Yes.
Which honestly, should you really be paid for that? I mean, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yes?
I'm totally kidding.
Yeah.
The whole getting paid to read books.
Yes.
Making a joke about that.
Yeah. So I read the book, I do the research. So what do you and roughly how long? So I guess as far as recording goes, Usually I get 2 finished hours done in a day. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's a little more, but when I'm planning out my schedule, I plan for 2 finished hours a day. So, for example, this book I think was 18.8 hours or whatever. So that's 10, 11, 12 days in the booth.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you got an appointment or, "Oh, my voice is yucky today," or what,
Mhm.
you don't always get your 2 hours in.
Yeah.
So,
I'm curious, in terms of like mistakes, like how often, so
mhm.
for per finished hour, how many times in that finished hour do you have to like start, stop, or like put a marker for the editor to come in and like clip out a piece where you made a mistake? Like, are you usually, because you've been doing this for a long time, so
Yeah, so
obviously you don't make a lot, but
it depends, and what's really funny is that oftentimes the books that I have the most pickups on are the simplest books,
interesting.
because
Hmm.
your brain kind of fills in what you think it's gonna be. So, for this book, I think it was 18.8 I think I had 45 fixes
That's
from the
not
proofreader.
bad.
Yeah, it
That's
was
not
something
bad.
not but maybe it was 60, but I think it was something like that, but I'm paying so close attention,
Hmm.
right? Because the writing, it's an elevated vocabulary, it's not just modern, there's a lot going on, so
Hmm.
I think you're just more focused, and then it'd be funny too that all of a sudden you'll get, like, 3 fixes on 1 page, and you realize, like, "Oh, I obviously needed a break," right, at
Hmm.
that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess a rule of thumb in the industry is 2.5 hours of work, give or take, to get 1 finished hour of audio. That doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily just mean in the booth,
Hmm.
but, there's also things like a truck goes by and I can hear that, so I have to stop, an
Hmm.
airplane,
Hmm.
my monitor ticks or my nose makes a sound, a lot of it isn't even just words that you're saying.
Okay. Stephanie asked, "Did Lydia tell me how to do all the pronunciations?" Well, I didn't do a very good job for this book. So normally, yes, yes, all the pronunciations of made up words, meaning things that is part of my world building. So Fey words, enkinim, any names that I created myself. I provide all the pronunciations for those. I give her a pronunciation guide along with the manuscript. And then for characters, I'll give her like, hey, here's a new character. Here's their ethnic background. Here's what sort of accent they may or may not have. Here's, like maybe I mentioned in the book they specifically sound like this. Like
Mhm.
maybe I specifically said they have a nasally voice or something. I would make sure she knows that, because then she needs to know that that's like the kind of part of the character's, how the reader is experiencing the character. And then I'll give suggestions. If it's just like a throwaway like background character, I'll usually just say, hey, they live in this area, do it however you want.
Yeah.
And then she'll just come up with whatever she wants to do. um, but in terms of the Fae and the Enkinim, so normally in my audio, like my pronunciation guide, I give like phonetic spellings of stuff and just general rules, like, A's are always a long A or something like that. But I guess either maybe Amy, maybe it's been a little while since you've done those pronunciations for the last book, or maybe I just didn't explain it well in my pronunciation guide this time around. But we had a little bit of trouble with the Enkinim and the Fae words, and we had to do a lot of re-edits of some specific words. And I think a lot of it had to do with the glottal stops and the sound
Yeah.
that seemed to crop up a bunch, and just some pronunciations from other that were inspired by other language. For instance, Arabic.
Right,
Um,
that's what got I think it was the Arabic that got us a little bit there with the but also you did an excellent job, you always have, because I understand phonetically Enkinim, like, I
mhm,
get it, right?
mhm.
Pretty much it's the same,
Yeah,
always.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But what happened a couple times was, you can know how to say the word, but I put the emphasis in the wrong
In the wrong
place.
place. Yeah, because you wouldn't know that. You just kind of go with what feels natural.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And what feels natural could be perfectly logical, but in my head as the writer, maybe I just had a different idea. So there was one word at the end of book 8, which means the enemy or demons, and it's utug enne in Enkinim. And it's two very separate sounding, because it's two different words. It's a compound word, so they're put together. So there's a dash. And so, you'd think when you're just looking at that, you'd put emphasis on one or the other, but it's actually a pretty intro utug and ne. They each have their own little emphasis.
That's utugane.
Um, yeah, yeah. You said utegane, utegane.
I think I
Yeah,
said at the end too.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, no, we can't guess on this one. There's a very specific pronunciation. And I think I sent you the link, but for the last couple books, I found some really cool articles and YouTube videos actually of people reading ancient Sumerian script and ancient Sumerian epics. And just the flowing, rolling, like, oh, it's so beautiful. Like, I love it.
I do
And then,
too.
and Enkinim is all based on ancient Sumerian because was one of the first languages of humanity, of civilization. So it's heavily inspired by that. And so, yeah, it's just clarification on those things. Sometimes where there was no way for her
And
to
I
know.
totally messed up an Italian name. 100%
That's
my
true.
fault.
That's true.
100% my fault.
I mean, and he, good thing he didn't hear it because he'd probably be pretty offended. But Jacopo Romano is the kind of
That's
guy who you don't want to offend.
Again, that's also the emphasis, right? Because as Americans, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
My
So that kind of answers the pronunciation thing. Dahlia asks, how much do you do at a time? That's a really interesting question. Do you just keep going until you get tired or until you make a mistake, or what do you do?
So going back to my plan to get 2 finished hours done, I do that in 40 finished minute sessions, right? So 40 plus 40 plus 40 is 120. That's 2 hours. So I go to 40. So people like, I don't know, Lydia Sherrer, who writes chapters, interludes that are
I'm sorry.
3 hours long.
So guys, the interlude for book 8 was so long, we had to split it in half because it was outside of Audible's required a minute limit for one file. So we had to submit it in 2 files for Audible. So if you hear interlude part 1 and part 2, that's a Audible audiobook specific split that has nothing to do with the actual book.
Yeah.
So.
Right. It doesn't have anything to do with the structure of the book. Right. So anyway, yeah. So I usually do that 40 minutes. And so that might mean 45, maybe 50, somewhere around 40 minutes, just depending on the chapter, how things break out, about 3 of those a day. And then sometimes I'll go back and do another, make 15, 20-minute chapter if I'm trying to catch up or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of my questions too. Danielle asks, do you have a favorite book? If so, what is it?
You mean that I've narrated or that I've read?
Well, let's do this in 2 parts. Favorite, like, of any book that you've narrated, like, not just mine necessarily, but any book. Like, do you have one that just stands out in your memory? And of the Love, Life, and Hocus books that you've narrated, for me specifically, which has been your favorite to produce?
No, I really thought about this a lot today. Which one is my favorite of yours? I can't pick because I'm going through the story just like you guys are, right? So every time it's the new book, well, obviously that's my favorite because, beginnings, I don't even know what year it was.
It was 2018.
18, end of
2018.
18.
I think so, because it came out in 2019. So you might have done it like January or February
I think
or something.
so, I moved into this house and I remember sitting on the deck talking to you. And I moved in here in 2018 in September.
I signed the contract in 2018, but the actual production might have been early 19.
So it's hard, and then of course, Identity was more from Sebastian's point of view. And like I've told Lydia a million times, I love Sebastian. Like, I'm not in love with Sebastian, but I just love him. He's so what?
I'm in love with Sebastian, but then Sebastian is heavily influenced by my husband. So
I wondered. Yeah, he's because him so Sebastian so well. I wonder, and he's just so loyal, like, and so charming and sweet, but also like knows his faults, but doesn't like give up. Oh, I just love him. Good choice, Lydia. Good job picking that husband.
And what's funny is when we first met, one of the first things David did was help me at an art show selling my art. That was like our second date, basically. He was trying to hide from his ex. He's like, "Hey, can I come over to your place? My ex is coming over to get her stuff, and I just need to not be here." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Come over to my place. I'm getting ready for an art show. You can help me pack stuff up. You can be my pack horse." So he came over, and funny story, that was our second time hanging out in person. and he told me he's a bard. He's a storyteller. Like, he doesn't really write stories, he tells stories.
Okay.
And so he told me a story about his balls. Yep, his testicles. He told me a story about his testicles, and it was so funny. I was on the floor, on my hands and knees, slapping the floor, dying of laughter, dying
I
of
gotta
laughter.
marry
And
him.
like, that was the day I'm like, I have to marry this man. Like, this is hilarious. And that was the same day he spun fire for me, because he does fire spinning and street performing, which was totally sexy. Like, he took his shirt off and everything, and fire spun for me.
Guys.
And when we went to the art show and he was helping me sell art, he was really good at marketing, like really good at selling stuff. I'm like,
Okay.
I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah, like, we should totally make this happen. So anyway, love you, David.
Good job, you guys. Hi, David. I can see him
And
in the
and
chat.
he is incredibly loyal and generous to a fault, and like, even to his detriment. And so, yes, definitely. And another influence behind Sebastian is my brother, Andrew, who died when I was 16.
Okay.
And he kind of has like more of the look of Sebastian, and like the goofy, like, always joking around personality.
Yeah.
But anywho, so favorite book, I thought you might say like Cat Magic or Cat Mischief, because of that blooper reel where you just couldn't narrate because you were laughing too hard.
You mean what was my favorite book to
Oh
narrate?
yeah, because we were just talking about favorite. I thought
I
you
mean,
might.
of course. Okay, so of course the novellas are fun because it's like just dip in and come out, right?
Hmm.
Because a lot of famous actors, celebrities, film, TV people will do audiobooks, and like I am never doing that again. That
Hmm.
is so much work. That is a marathon.
Wow.
And they don't even have to punch in. They record wild, we call it. Oftentimes they just record if they make a mistake, they just give it a couple beats of silence and they just do it again and the editor fixes it all. The way that I work is called punch and roll. So if I make a mistake, I go back to the waveform, I put my cursor before the mistake and I punch it in. So
Hmm.
when I send it to the editor, the proofer, as far as I know, there are no mistakes. So I'm doing
Interesting.
my own editing as I go.
And is that because it costs you less to just take a little bit more time to fix it yourself, rather than paying the editor to do the editing? Is that why?
No,
Or
it's because it costs me less because if they had to it's just what's industry standard and what is
yeah,
expected of me.
yeah.
They
Well,
they won't pay an editor to fix all that for
yeah.
me.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah, and
interesting.
when I'm working if I did that, your books would take I can't imagine how long it would take for them to do that,
Yeah. So
to add it together.
yeah, but then the actual voice acting is very different in terms of their standards and stuff. Or sorry, voice acting, the thing you just mentioned that you do not do, or
Oh,
they
the
just
wilds.
pause.
Yeah,
The wild
wild
one.
is they're doing they're reading the book, they're blah, 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 they're in the script, and if they make a mistake, they just stop, and then they read that sentence again and keep
Mhm.
going. Where I have to stop, move my cursor, make sure there's not a breath I'm cutting off, some weird noise. I have to do a clean punch so you can't even hear where I punched in. So I'm
Mhm.
essentially engineering myself as I
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's a lot of technical skill involved in that.
Right.
Um, so really quick, I just had to highlight this. Lydia's chapters are terribly long. Stephanie, there is a specific reason for that. And honestly, if I had realized this early in the series, I probably would have changed something to make it not this way, because you're right. They are too long. However, I have to do an illustration for every chapter. So the more chapters there are, the more illustrations I have to pay for. And it's not that I don't want more illustrations. It's not that I don't love the illustrations. And it's not even that we can't afford
No, but
to
it's
pay for
not
more
cost effective.
illustrations. My sister is the illustrator, and I will use no
Oh,
other, because I'm going to be consistent. I have to like hold her down, tie her down, and like hold a taser to her head or something to get her to do these illustrations. And that's not a bash on her. She has a life. When she did the first illustrations back in 2016, she didn't realize she was signing up for like an entire lifetime of doing illustrations for me. And she doesn't mind it. She's not like upset about it or anything. It's just she has a life and she's very busy.
yeah.
For this book, she got married in January. And so like she was doing illustrations while trying to get ready for her wedding. And
Oh.
so the fact that if I had asked her for more than the absolute minimum, she'd just been like, no, no, I'm not doing that. And so it's like, so even though my next year, I'm not doing illustrations again, or at least I'm not doing illustrations like I've done them in the past. I love the illustrations that I have in Lily Singer Adventures, but they do add a lot of they add time and money and effort. And I feel like I could write more and write faster and write better in ways if I wasn't artificially like doing the chat like making the chapters so long because of the
Uh,
illustrations. So yes, I'm sorry, Stephanie. There is a reason I could make them short. Like I could break them up more, but I have to do an illustration for every chapter. So that's why.
yeah.
I'm looking for the next question. You didn't answer, Amy, if you have a favorite book like of all time that you've ever narrated. Do you have a favorite that you can think of?
I don't think I mean, I've done over 700 books. I don't know if I can. I love your series, which I had one time in the credits called, remember this? When I said Lydia instead of Lily Singer. Remember I called it the
Yeah, I
Lydia
remember that. I
Singer
remember that.
Adventures?
Yep. That,
Literally
that the
in the
Ly-
credits.
the Lydia Singer adventures.
She's like, "Oh, well, we have a problem right out the gate
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
intro. Haven't even read the book yet, but you already made a mistake."
yeah,
And I just said
yeah.
I said, "Lydia." Yeah, I love this is a very, very fun series for lots of reasons. You fall in love with the character, you fall in love. Anyway, so the Spotless series by Camilla Monk. I think I've told you about that before,
Yeah.
Lydia. Very funny. It's kind of a loving send up of romance and spy novels and thrillers. Like they're very fun. Beth Duke. These are all very different types of writing.
Mhm.
Some of the Beth Duke stuff is wonderful. She just tells it's women's fiction and it kind of time jumps, but like into the 40s and anyway, it's beautiful. All of these books, the thing that they have in common is this giant thread of love, and characters that right? Like I don't know anybody who actually does magic, but
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like I know these people, or there are parts of me that are these people, right? That's what I connect to the most. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's some
I'm gonna
really good stuff too. So
I'm gonna ask the question that I had on my list here. What do you think is the most challenging thing about narrating?
I think it's what I was talking about before. You're engineering yourself, you're directing yourself. You're also trusting your choices that you're making as an actor. There's a lot going on at one time in your head, and so it's different. Like when I used to work at Brilliance, and I was in a studio, and I had an engineer and a director, I could just literally tell the story, right? Where my brain is kind of segmented now, and it's tiring. Quite honestly, it's tiring.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's probably the hardest part is trying to keep all of those parts of your brain activated because probably when you write to or any of you out there who have any creative endeavor, you need to shut off the left brain. You have to shut off that technical, is it right? Do it the right way. It
Mhm.
takes a lot of work to get rid of those people in your head
Mhm.
and just relax into the creativity.
Mhm.
And I can never really do that because I'm
Mm.
constantly listening for, is there a noise or a mistake or did I say the word incorrect? That's
Yeah.
that's I think that's the hard part.
Yeah. Is that I'm curious just for my own curiosity. Is that a difference in people who do voice acting for like TV series or animated like movies and stuff? Do they
They're
just?
in a studio with a director
Oh,
for
okay.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
Mhm.
But you get to do your own schedule and you don't have to coordinate with other people as much and you have more freedom and flexibility. You don't have to leave your
Also,
house.
none of those people worked during the pandemic, and I did.
That's true. There we go. That's
Yeah.
very true. Yeah. So I know you mentioned a little bit, kind of your favorite character to narrate and characters you really enjoyed. Who has been the most challenging character to narrate in the Love Lies and Hocus Pocus books so far?
Yeah, I'm gonna say I thought about this a lot too. I think it's Mallory
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
Anton Sylvester. Anton's
Mm.
the fixer who owns the store, and
The art gallery. Yeah. Kind
yeah,
of
everybody remember
Atlanta's
Anton,
magical fixer, Lily's great
uncle.
uncle. Yeah.
Mhm. And he's actually, I don't know what you're gonna do with him, in my head, he's actually a very principled, honest person. In his heart, he knows what's right and he knows who to love. But his living comes in the underworld, right? He's a
Hmm.
fixer. He does
Yeah. Yeah.
bad things, right? But he's always come through for them when they need him.
Yeah.
anyway, the reason that both Mallory and Anton are difficult for me is because like you can see it. My hands are going, my voice is going, I'm very emotional. I'm hard on my sleeve. Like Sebastian, that's why Sebastian's so easy for me. Like everything, he's like a puppy, right? Everything just comes out. And you can make a strong, even Madame Barrington, her, right?
Yeah.
And Lily too. Even when Lily vacillates and struggles, Lily. These two, their real selves are so buried that literally all that can come out is something very flat. But like you say too, like you've given me very good direction about that. Like, let Mallory come up a little bit here. We want to see a little bit more of her humanity, some more sneaks through in these parts or this book or these scenes. And it's really hard because you're holding all of that's true about them, and just what do they show the world though?
Interesting. So what you're saying is, if I ever did a series where Mallory was the main character, you wouldn't want to narrate it for me?
I'm not saying that, Lydia. I am not saying that. I'm just saying it's a fun challenge.
It's a fun challenge. Well, I will say I do have a Mallory series planned, and I've already written a little bit of it just like for fun, kind of exploring a little bit. And this is set 5 to 10 years after the Lily Singer adventures. So it's a lot of growth for Mallory. And you'll
Yeah.
see flashbacks. You'll see and I will do legit flashbacks. Like some books have like actual time flashbacks where you go into the past. It's not just in the present remembering stuff that happened, but like it's
Yes.
almost like the reader has closed their eyes and they're in the past. And so Mallory will have flashbacks of her past, of growing up and of how she was raised and the people she interacted with. I'm being a little bit vague, so there's not too many spoilers if anyone's not updated on the series. But and so you will get to see a lot of her past, but also you're going to get to see how she grows and like how she goes on from this. I've tried really hard not to say anything
Don't
too
say anything. I
spoilery.
want to know though. So
Yeah.
we can probably assume she's not the one that's gonna die then?
I mean, come
Probably.
on. Like,
Come on.
really? Would I kill Mallory? Like,
I don't
I
think you
can't.
can kill Mallory.
I can't write a series about her in the future if she dies.
Also, who can kill Mallory? No, even nobody. She's a bad
Yeah,
ass.
she
That's me
is.
peeping
Yes,
myself. She's a
yes, she
bad
is.
ass. I mean, you can't
Yes,
kill her.
flipping yourself. Yeah.
She's too tough.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. There's reasons. There's things planned for Mallory that if she knew about them, she would be pissed off. But she will just have to deal. She will
Oh,
just have to
can I
deal.
go back and brag about you for a
Yeah.
second?
Oh, sure.
Somebody had asked, I think Sarah or Stephanie, somebody asked, do you help me with the character voices
The
or tell
pronunciation, yeah.
but also there's so many fun things in Lydia's texts about how I know how to voice somebody. So one of my favorite characters is Uncle Alan, which is John Faust's brother. And we first met him in Allies, I think.
Yeah, so book 3, and so he shows up in Allies, and then again in book 7, where he
Right.
comes
He
to
testified.
Italy and helps with the trial.
So the man basically, it's like a stutter, basically, right? So this is how Lydia, and this is when I'm prepping my script. When I think Stephanie asked or Sarah asked me about that earlier, what I'm like highlighting and writing down. His words were abrupt, almost staccato, as if he were pecking at seeds. So like you can imagine him like so anxious, befuddled, hasn't spoken to people. He's literally like choosing each word at a time.
Hmm.
It's like I love that description so much. It's
I'm
so
really
good.
glad you enjoyed it. My favorite description of Uncle Alan has to do with his looks, not his voice. It's describing his mustache as a giant caterpillar sitting on his lip.
Just makes it hard to talk.
Yep. So we got some more questions from the audience. Let's see here. Stephanie asks, "How do you keep up with the constantly changing voices?" And that's a really great question because I've tried. Like I do readings at bookstores and stuff, and so I'll read some of my own books, and I won't try really hard to do different voices because I'm terrible at it. But even so, like my small attempts, it's like it gets really confusing switching person to person.
Mhm. Uh, it's hard. So the hardest part about that is when you have people with 2 or 3 different accents in a scene. Or also, like, even when everybody was in Italy, remember when we all went to Italy in, Kindred?
7. Mhm.
Yeah. So, you've got some people with lighter Italian accents, some people with very heavy, Italian accents, and then you've got, like, George D is also there, who's British, and then you've got a couple Americans, right? So
Some French people. Mhm.
and some Frenchies, right. So that's hard, only because the cadence of each of those languages is different. So your mouth literally has to, like, switch gears, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
I like to
yeah.
keep you on your toes, Amy,
It's
you
fine, yeah,
know.
it's just keeping me
Um,
honest.
here's a question from Alana, and it's a couple questions together. I'm not sure what you meant by do you mind if we get a small sample of the main voices? I think maybe she meant, can you like say something as Sebastian or like say something as
Mm.
Lily? That's interesting to me. Can you just like randomly come up with stuff and just talk as a character, or do you have to actually have something that you read like that's provided to you?
Well, I mean, Lydia, I feel like I know Sebastian well enough that, he come on. Let's chat
Come
and speak to
on.
me, Lil, come
Come
on.
on.
Yeah, ooh. Hey, Lil,
Yeah.
did you make any scones? I mean, right? Because we just know Sebastian. That's Sebastian.
Yes,
I
that's
love him.
Sebastian. Hello. Did
And
you
of
make any
course, that's
scones?
Sebastian. Nephew, please remove your lips from my mentee immediately. Hold
So
along.
some people are like, "Hey, Lydia, in book 8, things get a little bit spicy." I'm like, "No, that's not spicy. That's
No.
not spicy. If you're Madame Barrington, you think that's a little spicy." Like my favorite scenes in book 8 are where Madame Barrington is like, "Nephew, please stop canoodling in public." And
Noodling.
she's like
Great word.
scandalized, like, "Do not make me watch you." Kiss my student.
Yeah.
Hilarious stuff. No, guys, uh, this is a clean
Well,
series,
if
so
I were
there will be no spicy scenes in this
no.
series. There'll be a little bit of the playing around a little bit because they're healthy, consenting adults. Not sorry, that came out wrong. Playing. I don't mean playing around like physically like playing around. I just meant the kind of like the precursors, the like kissing a little bit, the hugging, the feelings coming out. Um, but it's a clean series, so there won't be any explicit scenes. Also, I don't want to give Amy a heart attack. Um, but
Fine.
you can be
I narrate a
sure,
lot of that. It's okay. In other words.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can be sure that uh, Lily and Sebastian would like there to be spicy scenes. He would very much like there to
Mhm.
be spicy. And if I allowed the reader to see his full thoughts on the situations, like in the interlude,
Yeah.
I censor those thoughts. You guys do not get to see Sebastian's thoughts about Lily. They are myriad and very complimentary and very spicy. So, you know,
Mhm.
Sebastian absolutely adores the ground that Lily walks on. So,
Oh, I
yeah,
know. I
yeah.
know. And
And
sometimes I wanna smack her.
poor
Mm,
Lily. Well, so
woman.
Lily is like so like it's not that she rejects intimacy. It's not that she doesn't want intimacy. She just
Right.
has no idea. So first of all, she was abused as a child, which we know about. And second of all, she grew up basically as an only child because she
Mhm.
was an only child for the first 7 or so years, and then she had siblings, but they were all younger. So she was like taking care of them and their step siblings, and they're really different. They're like country and they're farming and so she's and her mother has hidden stuff from her whole life. So she loves her mother and she appreciates her, but she's not like intimacy is really difficult for her. And part of it is the self-consciousness and just being so like people who are really self-conscious, it's just so hard to not immediately be like, "Oh no, what's
Right.
happening? Like, am I doing it right? Did I say something wrong? My
Right.
expression? Like, what do I do? Oh no." And it's some people are like that. And so for Lily, it's just she's so busy constantly analyzing everything to make sure she's not screwing stuff up that she
Yeah.
doesn't really get a chance to think about her own feelings, like the feelings that might like bubble up and blossom if she gave them a chance. And as you've seen in the series, she's figuring stuff out. She's figuring herself out. She's becoming more confident. She's better understanding how to look outward instead of inward, or at least when looking inward, not be looking at the am I screwing things up part of her, but the like, what does my heart say? Like, what is genuine? What is good for me? What is, you know, like, how can I connect with people? Not how can I not screw up and offend people?
Yeah.
She has a super like anxiety complex about offending people because of that abuse when she was a child. Because
Right.
anybody who was abused as a child, I mean, not anybody, I don't want to speak for other people, but a
Yeah.
common thing for childhood abuse is that people are super people pleasing and self confident about how their actions and words, because as a child, their actions and words could get them beaten. And so, like, self-consciously, like your brain creates pathways that you don't even realize are there, because of that trauma. So anyway, I will
Well, and
stop.
also because her dad valued her so highly,
Hmm.
I don't I don't wanna give anything away. That brought about some
Yeah,
what I would
perfectionism
call
anxieties. Yeah, yeah,
yes, that happened when we find out when he's testifying and
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and so and that's because I love you, because I value you, because you are Lilith LaFay,
Hmm. Hmm.
I did these things to you.
David is interrupting and bringing the kitty
Oh,
cat. So this is
hi, baby.
Luna. This is Luna.
Hi,
Luna's not
Luna.
cooperating. She's our most like neurotic, skittish kitty cat, and so the second he puts her down, she's gonna go hide. But
So
she's very sweet.
hi, Luna. Over the moona.
Yeah, she's got this cute little crescent moon marking on the front. See, there she goes. She's
Yeah, and
gone.
I think it was sweet how and also I felt relieved for Lily. I'm sorry, I can't remember what book it's in, but there's at least one time, if not 2, that they take a nap. They're literally in the same bed and they just sleep. And maybe he holds her.
Yeah, I think he's like spooning her or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, what a gift. You know, 'cause
Yeah.
like, I want her to be able to take a nap through most of
Yeah.
the series.
Well, and also
All the time.
and also for people who have high anxiety, like just touching can be, and also with like sensory things and everything, for her it's not just an issue of how does she connect emotionally, how does she learn how to be intimate, how does she learn those skills, but also like how does she let people touch her, and
Mhm.
so Sebastian's kind of helping her slowly like warm up to those things. Hi Gadget, I think they already saw Gadget.
Hi, Gadget.
You want to go find, yeah, go find Bastion butt munch.
Yeah, that's why I like too, when she gets the, armor from, the Taylor Cara Emmeline?
Emmeline Nichols.
Emmeline Nichols, yeah,
Mhm.
when they go to England.
Mhm.
Um,
And she gets
that
those
was
tailored
really
outfits.
yeah, her arm basically, fighting garb, whatever you wanna call it. I don't wanna ruin anything for anybody, but I
Oh, yeah.
thought that was really interesting too, just how you took time for Lily because she's very I always think of her as, like, the longish pencil skirt to your knee, the buttoned up collar, right?
Mhm.
And she just talked about the fabrics and how they felt and just those sensory things
Because
on
my
her.
sister is a costume designer, so I get it
Oh!
honestly. So Serena, who does the
Yeah.
illustrations, is
Yeah.
is a theater costumer, and now she does bridal stuff. Unfortunately, the pandemic killed her theater costuming
Oh,
career. So she
sure.
worked for many years on designing theater costumes. And now she does bridal alterations, and she also does she makes whole clothes like from scratch for herself. She just makes her clothes from scratch, designs them, and makes them. So she talks to me all the time about fabrics and stuff like that.
Oh,
Here's
yeah, yeah, I
Bastion.
loved it.
So here's the butt munch. This is the Bastion, who's not quite 2 years old, so he's still kind of a jerk, but we love him. We love him anyway. And now, because David made them come in here, now they don't want to be here because it's by force. It's
Oh,
not their
snap.
idea, so
Reverse
they want to.
psychology.
Yeah, yeah, reverse psychology. So Danielle says, "How did you come up with the voices of Sebastian and Sir Edgar Allan Kipling?" And I'll just say that I did give her some direction. I gave her some suggestions, but it did take the butt munch away. Um, in terms of like, I sent you that clip of the comedian. Oh, what was his name? What was a comedian I sent you a clip for Sir Kipling as a suggestion? No, no, he did Bean. He did Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
What's that comedian's name? I'm
Oh my
gonna
god,
look
I
it up.
can't see his face.
Mr. Bean. As soon as I see it, I'm gonna
Big
be like, of
buggy
course.
eyes.
What's his name? Well, here's Mr. Bean. So
David
what's it? Oh, Rowan Atkinson. Rowan
Rowan.
Atkinson. So I
Yeah.
sent her a clip of Rowan Atkinson as like a idea for Sir Kipling. But I'm curious about Sebastian because all I said for Sebastian was just kind of like a more neutral Midwestern accent. How did you come up with that voice?
I just felt like I knew him.
Hmm.
Like he's just younger.
Hmm.
Um, hey, come on, Lil. And he's always
Hmm.
smiling.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just because we also flirted for a second. I wasn't sure if he was supposed to have a southern accent, right? Until you
No,
told
no, no, yeah, not quite. Yeah, because
because
my
I thought
husband
he'd be
David.
kind of cute if he had a little southern drawl too. But you
No,
knew one. Yeah,
that's not Sebastian because
yeah.
like
You want him to sound smarmy.
I feel like Southern is generally a slower accent, and that's not
Mhm.
Sebastian. He's not slow. Like he's all up in there and charming, and also you've heard my husband speak. David is from Alabama, but he does not sound like he's from
Oh,
Alabama.
yeah.
And he's from rural Alabama, like grew up
Yeah.
out in the country, and does not sound at all like that because of his schooling, and just the time and effort his teachers took to be like, hey, this is like neutral. I mean, I don't want to say proper English necessarily because there's always a place for different regional accents, but like here's like neutral standard English, and we want to set you up, for the best to sound like the most professional and all that. And that was something that my parents, my mother is from rural West Virginia, and my father is from rural Kentucky, and neither of them have accents that you
Right.
might think of coming from those places, and neither do I.
No.
And so that's kind of my experience with both Lily and Sebastian, that they don't have Southern accents because they were, educated in a certain way. But anyway, I
Yeah,
love I love Sebastian's voice. That's one thing that clicked for me
I
immediately.
love
There
him.
were a couple other voice actors that I was looking at, but their samples from Sebastian were like, oh no, that's not Sebastian.
You gotta love him too much, and he talk about, somebody who, like, I know he was loved as a baby. I know he was loved and cherished in a lot of ways, but he he doesn't have a lot of people. At least he doesn't feel like he has a lot of
Well,
people at the
well,
beginning of the
until
series.
16, when his parents died. And now
Yeah,
you haven't narrated Accidental Witch. You haven't read it.
right,
That's Sebastian's backstory. And
right.
I will probably have you do Accidental Witch eventually. Maybe. I'm not sure who's going to narrate it. It might be you. And
Was it
no
a dude?
offense or anything. If it's not you,
No,
it would
but a
be
dude, yeah.
because it's a little bit of a different genre. It's a bit more of a horror. Like
Oh,
it's trauma. It's a lot of trauma. And
yeah,
so it's a much darker tone. It's
yeah.
not the same like upbeat, like more fun and funny tone of the Lucinger Adventures. So I haven't thought about it yet, but when I have thought about it, I'd have to go in and I'd have to think about it. I have to do some research on narrators for that type of genre and just see. And also I might ask you, Amy, like, hey Amy, if we were doing this book that's a more of like a darker theme, like let me hear your narration voice for that because it's
Right.
totally Sebastian. It's totally from Sebastian's perspective, and he's 16. So he doesn't really know himself yet. Um, but yeah, until 16, and he was like your typical average, a middle class, like kind of spoiled kid. I mean,
Yeah,
he had what he needed, and he never really thought about life and didn't think about like the challenges of life. And then one day, his parents are dead,
right.
and like the trauma. And he was really close with his mom,
Yeah,
really really close to his mom. A little bit estranged from his dad just because of those rebellious teenage years. Like his dad loved him, but like there was that struggle, like that headbutting right there at 16, like
mhm,
14, 15, 16. And so he regrets. You probably remember from book 8 where he says like, I could have been so much closer to my father if I'd had a chance to know him as an adult,
right.
instead of it
Yeah.
being cut off like right during my rebellious time period. So he was really loved young, but having that all torn away from you so unexpectedly and violently.
And 16 to 22, 23, especially for a dude that's on his own now,
Mhm.
and then there's the whole thing with the rift with his brother.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just felt like he had this great foundation, again, like we talked about, that you always set, there's a foundation of love and safety, but then, yeah, I just feel bad for him. I just felt, I think he's sweet no matter what. He doesn't get angry. Well, he gets angry, but you know what I mean? He doesn't
Yeah.
turn into
Yeah.
a jerk.
Hmm.
He stays kind, he stays loyal, he stays, And he just, he wants Madame Barrington to like him.
Yeah, well, and he starts to get that, like,
Oh, yeah.
because Madame Barrington is also working on the stick up her butt,
Right, 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 right. Pulling. So at
She's
one
over.
point I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say she's over 100 years old, and even she's still working on herself. So,
Yeah. Most of us don't even get that much time, do we?
no.
Work
What were you?
faster, work
What were,
faster.
what were you gonna say, Amy?
I remember at some point I thought it was about Sir Kip. It was something, Benedict Cumberbatch. Do you remember that conversation?
Um, who did I say sounded like Benedict Cumberbatch?
I was thinking it was Kip, like, you were like, just that kind of dry,
Yes, yes. Well, so Sherlock.
real pulled back from Sherlock. Yeah.
Yeah, from Sherlock. And so because yes, it's in the mix there. I think I gave you a couple examples of, because I mean Benedict Cumberbatch is a great example of kind of that. I mean, and not just, yeah, I think it was it wasn't David Tennant. It was Benedict Cumberbatch, because I was just trying to think of like Doctor Who. Sir Kipling isn't like the Doctor in Doctor Who, but there are parts of Sir Kipling that remind me of the Doctor, and parts of the Doctor that remind me of Sir Kipling.
Interesting.
Just in like the archetype sort of way. But yeah, I mean I love, but I'm not quite a, what do they call his lady fans? There's a word that they give
Oh,
themselves.
ba
I'm a
bat
fan. I'm a fan of Benedict Cumberbatch, but I'm not one of his like
Batches?
fangirl.
Cumberbatches? Cumberbatches?
Let's see here.
Cumberbatches?
What is the
Cumberbitches?
name
I can't remember.
for? It might be Cumberbitches. It might be
Yeah.
Cumberbitches the name for
Thank you, Angela Thomas. Thank
it.
you. I read your comment. Thank you.
Batch fangirls. What's the name of the Cumberbatch fangirls? Yeah, it's Cumberbitches.
Yeah.
So I'm not a Cumberbitch, but I do
I
really
am.
like Benedict Cumberbatch. Okay, that's totally cool. He
I know.
is insanely talented.
Talented. It's a
Insanely
talent
talented.
crush. 100% talent crush. Yeah.
Yep. And just to say this on air for those listening, because some people have asked in like email and stuff, the Sir Kipling plushie is coming. It's a 3-month production time. So Amy, you might not know about this. We did a campaign to do Sir Kipling plushies, and
Yeah.
so some people have said, "Oh, I can't wait for it to come." But unlike with my books where I have control over the production schedule, this is a company with a big factory making this, and so it should hopefully start
Mhm.
shipping out by early May for anybody, earlier mid-May for anybody who's curious. And just to iterate again, and I'll throw the link in the comments again, if you want to grab the audiobook for book 8, you can get it right now on my website. Listen to it through the Book Funnel app. If you don't want to wait for it to be available on Audible, which will be a couple weeks yet, just while they approve the files. So definitely go to store.lydiasherrer.com. It's right there on the front page, and it's heavily discounted. It's like 60% off right now. So go ahead and grab it while the grabbing's good, because that discount is not going to last long.
Yeah, and it's almost 19 hours long, you guys. Like, that is an amazing price. Amazing price.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to throw this up there. My husband put this lovely comment. He says something that Sebastian, he loves when people say Sebastian's a romantic, because I put direct quotes from my husband in the books. Like some of the things that Sebastian says are, I have literal conversations between me and my husband in the books between Lily and Sebastian. So if Sebastian ever says something super cute and romantic, there's a really good chance, like 95% chance, that was something my husband
So
said.
sweet.
I don't just come
So
up with
sweet.
those adorable romantic little things. Like the hubby helps out. Not everything. Some of them I come up with myself, but he just comes up with these little things, and I have a list. I have a whole document, and I write it all down. I'm like, I got to use this. So yeah. One of the things that David
Careful,
has
David.
said,
Don't say anything terrible. That'll get in there too. I'm
no, he
teasing.
never
He's
says
kidding.
anything
He's so
terrible.
sweet.
So one of the things David says is, "I miss you when I blink."
Oh.
And Sebastian's definitely going to say that in book 9. So yeah.
I'm gonna cry. Oh my god.
So Sarah, and by the way, Amy, Sarah Hartman is my sister, my older sister,
Hi,
who lives down in
Sarah.
Florida. And it's kind of hilarious. Sometimes we're talking about books, and she's like, "It's just so weird, like my sister being like a famous author. Like people will
Hi.
mention books. I'm like, oh yeah, she's my sister." Anyway, Sarah, I don't know her exact age off the top of my head. I have to look it up, but it's about 111, 112, somewhere around there. She was born in the very late, the last century of the 1800s or so. Let's see here. Any more questions? Oh, and by the way, it's over an hour now. We're gonna go a little bit longer. I'm gonna try to wrap up here in the next 10 minutes or so, just to respect Amy's time. But I'm just checking to see if we have any other really good questions here.
Did it say 1896 somewhere?
No,
Or should we say-
maybe it's something like that. I'd have to go look it up in my world building Bible. So
Okay.
oh, Stephanie says 18. Oh,
Yeah.
because Stephanie is a little obsessed with Madame Barrington in that
Okay.
she loves historical fiction, and so
Oh,
I've
yeah.
actually chatted with Stephanie about um, possibly getting her help with some of the historical research for doing a Madame Barrington origin series set during World War One.
Oh,
So yes, if Stephanie says it's 1896, it's probably
we believe you,
1896.
Stephanie. Thank you, darling, for knowing exactly.
Yes,
Go on. Thank you.
that's totally Madame Barrington. So, oh, apparently Sarah Hartman it's not my sister who's watching me. Shame on you, Sarah. You're not actually watching me. It's my nephew who's on
Oh,
my sister's account who's watching me. My nephews who are old enough, because I have some like younger nephews, like under 5. They're not reading these books, but my nephews who are old enough have all read the Lily Singer Adventures and are fans. So,
cool.
so he says it's your
Of
favorite nephew watching. Of course, it's my favorite
course.
nephew, and so he's actually the one doing the questions. Well, it's good to see you, favorite nephew. Danielle Terry says, "Do you use Scrivener to write your books?" I do use Scrivener as my base program. However, once I get into the editing stage, I use a couple different things. I'll put it up in Google Docs for the editing back and forth with my editor, and I'll use a couple different things. But yeah, my base program is all Scrivener. Can you still pre-order a Sir Kipling plushie? No, the campaign is over. However, I may have hooked up with some extra plushies. And if there's a outcry for them from people who have missed the campaign, I may make those available eventually. I have a couple of them earmarked for personal, like family members and stuff, but there may be some extra left over. But no, the campaign is gone and past. It was a one-time thing, kind of like Kickstarter type of thing. So let's see here. So I'm going to ask I'm going to just pivot a little bit. And for the last 10 minutes or so, I wanted to talk a little bit with Amy about narrating as a career and how that's changing with the rise of AI, and kind of how we as listeners can support narrators and can listen in an educated way. And so one of the questions I had written down here was, how can listeners best support human narrators and the continuation of the audiobook narrating profession? Because we wouldn't want you, Amy, to lose your livelihood. And people love, human narrators. So can you give us any insights or information about that?
Yeah. So it's really hard to know how much AI affects the, run-of-the-mill average full-time narrator. I know in the future it definitely will, because if you think about owning a company and you think about the narrator, the editor, the proofer, you're getting rid of 3 labor costs, right? If you can get a robot to do it. It's good business if you think of business as bottom line, right? I personally feel, and again, I was a teacher for a long time. I know a lot about language arts. I know a lot about how the brain develops with language. I know a lot about how we connect with each other through language. There's a study that says when people go to a play, a live stage play, their heartbeats get in sync within the
Wow.
first 15 minutes.
Wow.
And so when a human being is telling you a story, which is one of the most fundamental things we ever did, one of the most human things we ever did, before there was the written word or hieroglyphics or whatever, we talked to each other.
Mm.
Even if it was, don't eat the berries off that bush, you'll get sick, or, don't go out at night, whatever, we talk to each other. And so I think the human voice It's so important. Even when I'm all alone in my booth, my little microphone, I'm always picturing somebody listening to me. It's always a person I'm talking to.
Hmm.
And I think we're losing that more and more and more. Texting, it's not the same. Even TV, movie, it's not the same. And I think when someone is reading you a story, that's just one of the most human things you can do with somebody.
Yeah.
Like your Hobbit that you did with your family.
Yeah. So for anybody who isn't aware, my dad, when I was a kid, um, he's always he's a visionary. He's always very forward thinking, and he wanted our family to read as a family, to narrate the Lord of the Rings series. After my mom always read to us growing up, so long history of like mom reading to us, and she read The Hobbit and recorded it because we kept asking her to read it. So she just recorded it. It's like,
Oh,
there, now
smart.
you can go listen to it again and again. And so Dad got the idea of doing the Lord of the Rings as a family. And so we did it. It took us about 2 years to do all three of Lord of the Rings trilogy as a family. I was Gimli and Pippin were my two main characters. Like my sister, I have two sisters and one brother, and so at the time we had two male voices and four female voices to go around. So like my sister was Aragorn, and my mom was like Bilbo and Frodo and the narrator, and dad was like Gandalf. My brother was all the orcs. All the
Oh,
orcs
it works.
all the orcs was my brother. Gollum. He did Gollum and all the orcs. And Boromir. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
Boromir's death scene. Oh my
Uh-uh.
gosh, because my brother died later.
Yeah.
And so
That's cool.
I can't listen to Boromir's death scene without crying. But anyway, we did that, and that was just so formational for my like storytelling experience and like my connection with stories. And I treasure that so much, and I'd love to do something like that with my family and my kids once they're old enough. So we'll see.
You have to. Well, that's the thing too, like all these fans of yours who are like you're asking all these great questions and you know the book so well. And it's like, yeah, part of what makes me passionate about this job is that I literally am saying every line is going in my eyes, in my brain, in my heart, and out my mouth. Like I'm literally interacting with the text,
Hmm.
like on a physical level and an emotional level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. So how can we support? I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
I know you mentioned a little bit about like SAG-AFTRA and like rules and stuff. Is there something to look out for? People can see that they're supporting a book narrated by an author versus like something AI. Like, do you have any suggestions in that
we are
respect?
trying really hard. So I'm on the National Audiobook Steering Committee for SAG-AFTRA, and we're trying really hard to make sure that everything is very clearly labeled. If you're buying it and a robot read it to you, AI, we're trying really hard to have that happen. So when you're shopping for your audiobooks, look to see, is it a name? Listen to the sample. Does it sound like an actual person? Buy directly from indie authors' websites, right? Because obviously, well, I mean, there are some authors who are using AI,
Yeah,
and I I'm not going to judge that.
I mean, that's their choice. And I mean, and for some, I can totally understand the perspective of I am an indie author. I'm brand new. I
Yeah,
literally cannot afford to pay a human because, I mean, you told us already how much time and effort it takes to make and these are masterpieces of storytelling.
right.
Like, yes, I might come up with the story, but the way you express it and bring it to like people's hearts and minds through our ears, like that's a masterpiece. And you are acting, you're a professional actor, and you deserve to be paid very well for your time. And
My
that's
rate,
not
just so you know,
easy.
Lydia, my rate is not high.
No, it's very
If you look
reasonable.
at a lot of people, I'm
Yeah.
fortunate because and I'm not trying to undercut anybody or whatever, but I live in the Midwest.
Mhm.
If I lived in New York, LA, Chicago, it's a very different cost of living.
Yeah.
So I'm just fortunate that I mean, I'm not like super, I'm
Yeah.
competitive, but I'm
I
not,
get it.
there are definitely people who need to,
Charge more. Yeah.
and they
And
should, and they're worth, and they deserve it. Yeah.
yeah, and so I understand like a new author being like, "Hey, like
Yeah.
I need to establish my career. I can't afford a human narrator. Like it's just not possible for me. I think AI is good enough. Like let's just do this." And I mean, and Amazon's making it unfortunately way too easy. They've been beta testing a thing where indie authors can go and if they don't have an audiobook produced already, they can have Amazon virtual voices
Yep.
read the book, and the author doesn't get the files. They can't do anything with it. It'll only be on Audible, Amazon. But with one click and no cost at
Yeah.
all, they can have an audiobook created and instantly start making money with it. And, for a person who's just trying to feed their family, like, I understand why people would do that.
Mhm.
I'm very blessed that I'm in a place where I don't have to make that decision. I don't have to make that choice. Like, what I personally think is ethical versus what I need to do to feed my family. But not all authors are in that place. So thank you for letting us know about like the labeling.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that SAG-AFTRA is pushing for that. And I hope that that continues to be that the
Yeah,
big tech companies
my
prioritize that.
my hard thing with I understand what you're saying, and like if I'm a new author, I'm gonna use AI. My problem is not with that author. My problem is with Amazon or whoever's creating that technology. Because oftentimes we're narrators, this is our job, we listen to stuff, right? Immediately we're like, oh, that's so and so's voice. They took her voice and they put it through the machine and the machine learned it and it sounds like this colleague, that colleague, that colleague. And that colleague is not being paid for that. That's where I have a problem with it.
Yeah, I totally get that. And
Yeah.
it's very unfortunate. And the whole like chat GPT and where it learns from and all the people's books that have been, all the information that it's been learning from without people's permission.
Right.
It's a very tough. I mean, it's a brand new world,
Right.
and it's tough. But I love that I'm able to have you narrate my books
So
and support your
grateful.
career. I absolutely love the work that you do. So yeah, listeners, just look and things should be labeled.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know what the rules are for labeling, but I'm pretty sure an audiobook that if it was read by AI, it wouldn't say a person's name, right?
Does
Because
sometimes.
AI's really?
It does
But
sometimes.
whose name is it? Where are they getting that name from? It wasn't a person.
Make it up.
Oh my gosh, that's tough. That's so tough.
It's gross.
So just try to, just try to be conscious about your audiobook choices and, look and see the narrator. Another thing you can do is if you can, just do a quick Google search for a narrator's name, like narrators like Amy, like will pop up. They have a career, they have profiles, they have, interviews. Like you can easily see that Amy is a human narrator. Gadget, don't Gadget. Okay, I hope she didn't close something. Um, and so you can always do that if you're not sure. I would think I thought that if it was AI, there wouldn't be an like a narrator name, but I guess they just come up with stuff. But anyway, um, I'm going to.
Yeah,
I'm
see the
just.
virtual voice when somebody just said in the chat, that's one thing that we're trying to make sure that Audible does. Like we're trying to get them to label. So somebody said, is it even legal? And we've paired with the MLB, the NBA, the NFL, a lot of because professional musicians, because they're stealing everybody's everything. Like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden this
Anything on the
guy's
internet.
Hmm?
Anything on the internet is fair game to them.
Right, and they're making video games with these professional football players. Like, I didn't sign anything. No one's paying me for that. It's my
Yeah.
voice. It's my, number. It's my whatever. So yeah. So the legal system is trying to catch up. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's hard because laws understandably move slower than culture and technology because it's important to debate and see all sides and like carefully move through these laws because once you make them, it can be very hard to unmake them. And if you like rushed into it, like I get that, but it is very difficult.
Mhm.
Um, so really quick, I want to end on a bit of a lighter note before
Yeah.
we go. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about your blooper reel that you sent me, which
Oh
I
yeah.
don't really see a way. I don't think I can
Uh,
play it. Is there a way to play it so the listeners can hear it?
can you play it? How did I send it to you? Can you play it on your phone? And then
I don't know how well the audio will come through. I can try it. What I can do is I can take out my headphones and put in my speakers and I could just play it. So I've
Let's
taken out
see.
my headphones. I'm on speaker now. Can you still hear me okay, Amy?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
All right, well then I'm just gonna play it for my computer, for my speakers, and hopefully people can hear it. And I'm gonna skip forward a little.
Definitely laugh at me. It is totally fine. I'm okay with that.
At least he's not a scruffy looking. I'm not gonna get this right. Scruffy looking nerf herder. Scruffy looking. Okay, I can do it. I promise. They glared daggers at each other over Sir Kipling, who paused, his face watching. God bless America. No, He's face washing. Ah! Based on her diary and the curse she'd cast, she was a wizard prodigy. Probably a prodigy. The gray, overcast sky did little to complement its grandeur, but at least it wasn't raining, so they could clearly see its yellow stone facade, nicely offset by the Greyafits. It's nicely offset by the Greyafits. What, you don't have Greyafits? My gosh, who are you? You don't even know what a Greyafit is? Compliments yellow. Father, what have I told you about wasting your power on frivolities? Frivolities? Tea you don't need is a frivolity. Frivolity. Oh, Lydia, aren't you glad I didn't write this book? Ooh, isn't everybody? The fox cocked his head. Perhaps he too recognized how cold and clinical. That was not a criticism, Lily, Madame Barrington said gently, correctly interpreting. Interpreting. Shouting at John Faust, who had backed up, head bowed and hands raised, palms toward them in a gesture of obeisance.
Your laughs are so adorable.
I don't know, got fat on power? Obeisance? Maybe it's about his ego? I don't know.
So a quick note there, guys. It actually can be pronounced. So in American English, it is pronounced generally obeisance, and in British English, it's obeisance, because the word means like you're.
Oh, we lost you. Oh, you froze up. Oh no. Is she frozen for other people too?
It's almost like a groveling.
Oh. Oh no. You're frozen, Miss Lydia. Oh. With hands up in obeisance. Okay, thank you, David.
All right,
Are you back? Oh no.
I reconnect?
There it is.
All right. So, am I back?
Okay, now you're back. Yes.
Okay.
Are we good now?
Okay. Are we good now?
It just
Amy?
took me coming up and saying something.
Hi, it was just you, your magical presence. Can you tell us you were saying in British it's obeisance?
Obeisance and obeisance. So in American English, you can't say it's commonly said obeisance. And then in British English, in British English, it's obeisance. Like you obey someone, obeisance. And it means to like grovel or like to submit to somebody. Like a gesture of obeisance would be like, like, hey, like don't hurt me, something like that. And in American English, it is commonly said obeisance, which sounds a little bit like obesity, which is why you were laughing so much, like he was getting fat on power or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the blooper reel. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that with us and letting us have a little bit of a chuckle on your behalf or at your expense. And
that's fine.
I will try and share in my next newsletter that blooper reel as well as the other one that you had sent me a while ago for Sir Kipling from Cat Mischief, which I think is hilarious because it's you snorting and laughing and Lots of fun. Well, thank you everybody who came
Thank
and
you
watched us
so
live.
much.
Thank you so
Thank
much for all the
you.
questions.
Thank you
And
so
then
much.
anybody who watches this after the fact, if you have any other questions that generally I might be able to answer, feel free to throw them in the comments. I'll try and read through and just keep answering questions if possible. And of course, you can find Amy on her own page. Amy, is there a particular place that people should go to find you, or what?
You can go to Amy at amymcfadden.com is my website. Yeah, or anywhere books are sold. So Audible, you can go any author's websites. There, yeah. If you,
Mhm.
even if you go to Audible and you look me up, a lot of those authors have websites. You can find them there and you can buy things there or through Audible, however you want to do that. There's Chirp, there's Hulu, libraries carry a lot of my books.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lydia.
Thank you, Amy. And guys, store.lydiasherrer.com. You can get the audiobook from me right now and start listening tonight.
Okay.
So thank you, Amy, for everything. And it's a good to see you in chat. And maybe we can do this again next year when book 9 comes out.
Yeah, let's do it. It'll be real
All
fun.
right. All
Okay.
right. Bye,
Bye.
Amy. Oh, how do I turn off live?
I'm going to go
End
leave.
stream. There we go. End stream. Okay. Bye-bye, Amy. Have a great evening.